And all that I once knew, and all that I lost. We were all best friends. We were all really immediate. We didn't look at each other like friends, but we all looked at each other like brothers.
20-year-old Daryl Kruger is the only one left in his family of friends. 1 month ago today, Daryl watched as the bodies of his best friends were taken away, victims of a brutal triple homicide.
Do you feel thankful that you weren't at that party that night?
Well, not really. I feel empty, you know, I feel lonely inside. No matter what I do, no matter how many friends I have around me now, I still feel like I'm just all alone.
Daryl had been with his friends the night they died, only he decided to call it a night early, a call which may have saved his life.
And these are my closest friends. You know, the way I feel about this whole thing is just, I feel like it's a tragedy, but more or less it's a lesson now that it's definitely been taught, and I've definitely learned a lot from this.
What nobody has learned yet is why, but for tonight, the questions are replaced with memories.
I think I'm going there tonight to say my last bit of words that I'm going to say, you know, and just basically to let my friends know, because I know they're watching me right now, let my friends know that, hey, you know, I'll say this last bit of things for you and let you guys know, hey, I loved all you guys, you know. I lost my homies, yeah, yeah, I lost my friends, and I just can't believe that all our fun times have came to an end. That's how it is, but that's how the song is. Anyway, yeah, it's not bad.
The work is booming around here.
Well, that's it.
They're building houses. They're building roads. Kathy Crooks is part of the boom.
We've been treated, you know, pretty terrible, you know, throughout the years, so it was time to take care of our people, and that's what it's meant. It's taking care of our own.
They're taking care of their own with the profits of gambling at Mystic Lake, worth $400,000 to every community member last year. That from casino revenues of $500 million. The figures were released in response to charges of financial mismanagement.
Our money is not only used for the members of the community, but it's used for sewer and water projects, it's used for housing, it's used for education.
People read this, they're going to be kind of mad. I mean, this is a lot of money that is right in the state of Minnesota, and we can't get it for anything. Can't get it for compulsive gambling, we can't get it for the general fund. We can't.
Senator Joe Bertram says he doesn't want to take anything away from the tribal casinos, but he wants to see resort and bar owners have the same opportunity to thrive. Despite vocal support, the bill has failed 3 times.
I think if this were 3 weeks earlier in a session, my video gaming bill would still be before the tax committee.
The state's Indian Gaming Association says they'll continue to fight for tribal rights and sovereignty in this issue. But some state lawmakers say they may finally have the ammunition they need to pass legislation helping the state's hospitality industry.
But I think he's wrong. Also, I think maybe the leadership is a little political. They want to be more conservative than the governor because it's an election year. I think that we should build right now while the interests are low.
Workers Workers from across the Northland gathered today, all calling for change. At the top of their list, what they call a livable minimum wage.
I think people in this area are fed up with this idea that minimum wage is some sort of real offer to work 8 hours a day at a job, maybe try and support a family of 2, 3. If you work for minimum wage, you're going to be below the poverty line.
Todd Kneebone and others at today's rally have a common message. Full-time workers should not have to depend on food stamps, food shelves, and medical assistance to survive. The group says survival is not a realistic possibility at $4.25 per hour. They are looking not only to the federal government for change, but also to their neighbors.
Started here, we have to start in this neighborhood in Duluth to assert democracy on the workplace and in the ballot box, and to assure that people of color, women, and minorities of all sorts and underrepresented neighborhoods get justice on the jobs.
The Northland is no stranger to fighting for workers' rights. Unions are a part of this area's history. But on this May Day, these workers say it's time to make solidarity a thing of the present and future.
We come here for a beginning. This is not an end, and it's just the beginning of the beginning.
If you're working, you have to be very careful because it can cause drowsiness.
David Owen had a rough night last night. He was sneezing, stuffed up, and generally miserable.
It was a long night, so I got here as quick as I could this morning.
What he found was another common side effect of allergies: confusion over what to take. If you go to the drugstore to find relief for your allergies, you're going to find antihistamines, decongestants, antihistamines with decongestants, and then multi-symptom tablets. At this Eckerd store alone, there's more than 75 over-the-counter products for allergy symptoms.
We're probably going to see it be worse this year. Simple reason is we didn't get our normal freezes.
For advice on what to take, we talked to Eckerd pharmacist Vic Morelli. Morelli says there are basically two types of medications for allergy sufferers: antihistamines and decongestants. Antihistamines help with the runny nose, watery eyes, sneezing, and postnasal drip. They basically dry you up, but there are side effects.
An antihistamine is going to cause drowsiness, kind of disorient you, as well as maybe slow your reaction time.
A decongestant, on the other hand, shrinks the swollen nasal passages and clears the stuffiness.
It's going to open up, you're going to breathe, but you have to get the tissues for the runny noses and whatnot.
What about the multi-symptom medicines? Morelli warns with every ingredient you add, you also add a possible side effect. And if you have any pre-existing medical conditions, be sure to check with your pharmacist or doctor.
This may look safe because you can buy it without a prescription, but it can be very dangerous and should consult a physician.
I'm Irene Mayer for NBC News.
Within 2 weeks, we should have a selection of 4 or 5 or 6 good sites. And that will itemize in as much detail as possible the utilities, the taxes, all the properties of the site. And once we get those, we'll be working through those with Northwest.
But looks can be deceiving. In this building are hardened criminals, robbers, rapists, and murderers who are finishing their prison terms. They are supposed to be locked up, but we're told they can easily. 23 rule violations by state investigators. All the violations were...
More, there was not the supervision of him. Otherwise, he would...
In fact, in 1993, the program won...
come back to the unit, and he would...
Take the case of Stuart Allenson.
Anything could happen in there at night.
This is Becky, a young mother of 2 and a former client at the facility. She knows all too well the fear of living unprotected.
There you have it. All right. Okay, and we're just about to full annularity here in Columbia, Missouri. Of course, the path of the eclipse is moving from the southwest across the country to the northeast. We're so fortunate here in Columbia to be right in the middle of the path, so we're going to be experiencing the maximum effects of this eclipse in just a moment. You see the picture there on your screen of the moon, and we are just about there, folks. It looks like you can see the ring around the moon, and that is, of course, the very outside area of the sun. In this case, the moon
had serious concerns, so we began investigating further. Here I must thank the IRRB staff, Commissioner Gustafson, Science, Insecticides, and Fungicides, this answering our questions and providing the plans, latest maps, turn this site into a golf course.
An EIS will not kill this project. An EIS will ensure that this project is one that won't harm the public's water, among other things.
Problem for aquatic species statewide.
This board has had the responsibility?
This is only the second known site of the floating marsh marigold in Minnesota and by far the largest population. Our lines to Giants Bridge were installed with the understanding that there would be further development happening and we had better pay attention. I also have a letter from Stephen Gaskill that I'll submit to you.
Appeared, and I think people are more aware of what we just created false hopes here, right? Temperature of the water. We have another kid who was under cold water for drowning is a whole different ball game. It's a very different ball game because, like Dr. Murphy says, it's a hypoxic injury to the brain. It's a total injury to the brain, and again, I always believe in being too optimistic because that's all I do. I mean, I take care of really sick kids, and I just don't want to give up.
As long as he keeps up, you know, say one day he'll move his toes. If he keeps moving on day after day, you know, that's a good sign. Like the other day, he squeezed my hand. You know, he didn't squeeze it today, but maybe tomorrow he will.
On Tuesday evening, May 3rd, a construction project south of Gary, New Duluth on Highway 23 was the site of extensive tool and equipment loss. Several local contractors and their employees were the victims. The thieves used bolt cutters to cut the locks off the rear gate of the project. They then adjusted the chain to make it appear everything was secure. This allowed them time to search out the items they wanted to steal. They broke into trailers and portable toolboxes located around the site and loaded them onto a stolen truck. The loss included a portable generator, 4 toolboxes and tools, 10 portable two-way radios, a cutting torch and gauges, a fax machine, and miscellaneous power tools. They then cut the locks off the front gate and drove to a secluded park where they transferred everything to their own vehicle. The thieves have some bragging to do and lots of tools to sell. Crime Stoppers could pay you up to $1,000 to find out who they are. Call 1-800-974-TIPS or 723-ENOUGH.
We the people must remember what they fought for. We the people must cherish their memory. We the people must honor their sacrifice.
Even though I was in an airborne division, our battalion went in by sea, and we were to report to the place where there was the greatest opposition.
Maybe we were a little naive and maybe we didn't really create a common ground, but there's no doubt in my mind as I listen to this behind me that we did create a playground, and that was our intention right from the start.
For everything he's ever done for me, because he's here today. From day one, there's been a gentleman who has helped me a great deal.
As opposed to getting lost or stolen from the post office's end?
Absolutely. That sanctity of the mail is absolute throughout our system, and we protect that mail, and we have to be careful in terms of the recipient, because certainly with the society we deal with, people do break into mailboxes, they break into mail trucks. There's quite a spectrum with the society as a whole.
contract included an early incentive bonus of about $21,000 a day for early completion of the project. We believe the contractor will almost totally maximize that bonus. That has obviously caused him to invest additional funding to expedite the project.
He missed the runway, landed on the southwestern portion of the base. The pilot did eject safely. Fire crews from Buckley were on the scene immediately, put the fire out. There's very little damage at all to the airfield and no damage to the runway.
I think it's more important than ever that we have a series of debates in this state, and I've challenged all of the candidates to such debates. And more important than just having debates, that they be focused, each debate, on a particular issue.
I think that's the biggest change from when some of these people put in their septics in the 60s. The laws have changed, all of them. And so now suddenly they have systems that wouldn't be allowed to be put in probably in this day and age with all the new laws that are out there, but they were acceptable 20, 30 years ago.
Look at the old trees right along the road. Well, God, the day we... Mostly I eat potatoes and bread.
General Mills said today that as much as 15 million bushels of oats may have been sprayed with chlorpyrifos ethyl, a common pesticide approved for use on a wide variety of agricultural products and grains, but not oats. General Mills, like almost all grain elevators at the head of the lakes, contracts its pesticide spraying program to outside companies. A routine check by the Food and Drug Administration discovered the use of the unapproved chemical. General Mills believes the improper treatments date back to May of 1993, which means Cheerios and other oat-based products were widely consumed before the error was discovered. The Twin Cities-based food giant stopped all shipments, but expects they'll resume in a matter of days. Local inspectors with the Federal Grain Department tell us they have tests for quality, contamination caused by rodents, and odor caused by fumigants, but can do little to test for the proper use of pesticides. However, a local spokesman said occurrences like the General Mills episode may lead to expanded inspection efforts.
dragon live by the sea and frolic in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Little Jackie Paper loved that rascal Puff and brought him strings and sealing wax and other fancy stuff. Oh, together they would travel on a boat with billowed sails. Jackie kept a
As cleanup and testing continues, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is trying to measure how much oil has escaped from Minnesota twist drill. The MPCA has tested Chisholm's water supply and declared it safe. However, environmental damage at Long Ear Lake is being uncovered.
There were a few blackbirds that we found that were oiled from the leak, and several of those were dead. There was one duck that was spotted that had oil on it, but it flew away, seemed to be undamaged. Other than that, virtually no wildlife that's been found.
Contaminated soil and brush are being removed while oil is skimmed from the water. For now, the MPCA hasn't put a dollar amount on the damage and cleanup. Floodwaters rush through Minnesota twist drill, carrying with them a mineral-based cutting oil that's used for manufacturing drill bits. Water in the plant rose so high it even reached the first-floor offices. Minnesota twist drill officials say damage to their company may well reach $250,000, and that's not including the expense of cleaning up Long Ear Lake.
Under state law, the person who caused or was responsible for the spill or leak is responsible for cleaning it up. So in this case, it would be the company.
Today, the MPCA shifted cleanup responsibility over to Minnesota twist drill, who will keep the same chemical cleanup crews at the site.
We've cooperated, as in the past, with the government, state, county, and our neighbors here on just everything that has to be done, and we're doing it.
Washing the shoreline and cleaning up nearby ponds and vegetation is expected to continue through the summer. In Chisholm, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
What we have to do now is kind of step back and assess where we stand and lay out for the stakeholders a goal that we have in mind and negotiate an arrangement. And like I said, I'm positive that we'll receive complete cooperation in that process.
And worse, two of them start berating the golf course to the bunkers. And so Russ Corpla is apparent to me that we are no longer being represented very well in northwestern Wisconsin. That Bob Jelk no longer represents the values of the residents of our area. And worst yet, he treats his constituents with a degree of arrogance and rudeness that I don't believe we deserve.
Right now, in all honesty, National Steel is about the most expensive product on the world steel market, and they've got to be much more competitive. Their overall goal is to try to shave costs by about $4 a ton.
Zabar's international coffee selection includes Swiss Dark, Hawaiian Kuna, and Colombian Mocha. Different flavors, one rapidly rising price.
Right now we sell a pound of coffee for $3.98. It's going to go up to $4.98 probably, $1 a pound.
Volatility on the trading floor triggered the price surge after a weekend cold snap in Brazil, the world's largest producer. As much as a quarter of next year's crop could be affected. Coffee futures responded accordingly, skyrocketing to their highest level in more than 5 years. Prices on the coffee market had already doubled prior to the Brazilian frost because of decreased production. Those price hikes have not yet fully been felt by consumers. Coffee producers had deliberately lowered production in order to boost prices after importers stockpiled large shipments.
There was a perception in the market that there would be not necessarily a shortage, but a lack of availability of the desired types of coffees.
Large stockpiles and low prices gave many retailers some room to absorb the market speculation. Not so after the crop freeze. Large roasters like Procter & Gamble and Philip Morris are immediately passing on the hike. Chock-full of Nuts says it's holding the line. Not so for this coffee shop.
We had one increase about 3 weeks ago of 30 cents a pound. And we anticipate a second increase about the second week of July for another 30 cents a pound.
Price hikes that may give coffee drinkers a bigger jolt than caffeine. Susan Lasovich for NBC News, New York.
Today, the Minnesota Department of Public Safety offered a warning to people who cross over to Wisconsin for cheaper booze. Legally, an adult is allowed to bring back into Minnesota just 1 liter of alcohol or 1 case of 24 12-ounce cans of beer.
We'll stake out an area where we think a lot of liquor and cigarettes are coming from, probably take some videotape, and we will work in conjunction with local law enforcement, the Duluth PD, and we will call when we see illegal shipments coming into Minnesota, and we will take appropriate action.
In this case, appropriate action could mean a ticket, a citation, and the confiscation of liquor purchased across the border. The big problem, according to Minnesota officials, is the loss of tax dollars. For Minnesota liquor store owners, it means a loss in business.
And they also have 2 businesses. They have on and off sale together, where they can operate on a smaller markup on the packaged good. Yeah. This is our livelihood right here.
The law limiting the amount of alcohol you can transport back into Minnesota has been on the books for a while, but a lot of folks we talked with today preparing to bring liquor home simply were unaware of its existence.
Did you know if you do that, you'll be breaking the law?
I guess I didn't really think about it, no.
The bottom line, if you're shopping for bargains across the border, remember there is a limit to what you can bring back. If you need more, visit your local store.
Be confident there's enough to drink in Duluth. There's enough beer and whiskey in Duluth, you'll never run the town dry. I think part of it is, though, too, is that there's people that live and work here and operate businesses here.
Feel free to walk around and enjoy the land as we have and as we continue to do so.
The true value of this land can be found in the memories it holds and the history that's been preserved here. Mary Ann Walt's father, Joseph Lord, was 5 years old when he received this land from the government.
We feel very fortunate because in Douglas County here, the Osage family are the only ones that still have their Indian allotment land. A lot of Indians lost it through fee patent, selling timber rights, and just selling the land to different ones. So a lot of it was lost.
Yes, it does. It's our family.
Hundreds of Lord family descendants and friends are not only celebrating the preservation of this land, they're meeting distant relatives and learning about their culture.
It's probably one of the greatest things that'll ever happen to me in my life, is to have all these people here gathered for this traditional feast.
The Lord family history will be included in a book on the heritage of Lake Superior area Chippewa Indians. For 20 years, Lori Madden of Superior has been tracing her family tree and collecting photographs and other documentation.
And I think that the family needs to know that there is pride there. There is some things in our heritage that should be treasured and should be passed along and should not be forgotten. And
In Solon Springs, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
Apart, and that's what I...
What then happens is that those 4 remaining councilors would basically appoint a mayor and a clerk and a councilor to fill the district position of Steve Sabin.
Get up. It's
lifted.
You a tailing now. Whoa. Yeah. Oh, man. I think it's time to get out of here.
North end. Well, get out of here.
Come on, get up. It's
The firefighters got trapped when the weather changed. A cold front preceded by strong winds whipped the flames on Storm King Mountain into an inferno. These pictures were captured by a man with a home video camera.
The wind is blowing down the mountain now.
Wow, look at that. You feel that heat.
Burning since Sunday, this fire had caused no problems. It had been held to about 50 acres. But by late yesterday, the wind was pushing the fire through the tinder-dry forest at about 100 feet a minute. Despite slurry bombers and helicopters with water buckets, there was no way to stop it. It was 5 miles west of Glenwood Springs, a resort town on Interstate 70. It is now within a half-mile of town, threatening a subdivision and a shopping center. In the area of homes, while children kept roofs cooled down with water from garden hoses, parents loaded cars with possessions.
Can't believe it's happening. They just don't believe it's happening.
I think the Lord's going to protect our house. But it is close, and we need to pray for a lot of people because they really need help right now.
Preliminary reports suggest the firefighters were on a ridge, clearing away brush, building what's known as fire breaks. When the winds picked up, they also changed direction from southeast to northwest. That may be why the firemen could not escape the advancing wall of fire.
But Brad Haw was one of the lucky ones. He did escape.
The fire got real big real fast and just overran us. We were trying to get out of there, and it just grew at an unbelievable rate. I just can't describe how quickly it grew.
You got out. How did you get out?
Strong legs and fast feet.
Well, the Energy in 1974 was nominated a National Historic Site because it is one of the last steam-powered tugboats in North America, and it still has its original coal-burning engine, and so it's pretty popular. It's been bringing a lot of national attention, and we've been building plans to make an interpretation site in a marina down here, so that in the next 5 years or so, we're hoping to have it open year-round and for the season for tours as well.
Say hello to Bruno, Lake Nebagamon's latest addition. Seeing black bears in this area is, of course, not uncommon. What is uncommon, however, is to see a cub this small without its mother close behind. Bruno's mother died soon after he was born, leaving the young cub to fend for himself. He is, however, getting some help in the food department.
I mean, last night my neighbor came over with corn, put corn by my front tree. They came over with bread.
Bob Hockrein has been Bruno's latest host. The town has been feeding the cub for about a week now, and as you can see, Bruno is not afraid of getting close to share a little food with his neighbors.
And the bear actually came over and started licking the honey and licking the peanut butter off the piece of bread. And I'm sitting there, and I'm only a couple inches away from it, basically, and he looked up at me and licked my nose. I'm going, no, now we've had enough. So I'm going, oh, this is really exciting. Now I've got 2 cats and a black bear.
The odds of Bruno surviving are slim. 50% of normal cubs don't make it through the first year. Add to the fact that Bruno's on his own and the survival rate drops considerably. Jim Worm of Minnesota DNR says in cases like this, if the animal isn't dealt with, its domestication will lead it to become what's called a nuisance bear, one that continually seeks food from humans.
To avoid that, you only have 2 choices. You can only leave it be and let nature take its course, or you can attempt to find a zoo or a rehabilitator of some sort that will take that bear and try and raise it in a manner where it doesn't become imprinted on.
That second choice is what Bob and the folks in Lake Nebagaman are hoping will be in Bruno's future.
I hope somebody of that nature would do it. It would be great.
In Lake Nebagaman, Ted Rowlands, News 6.
Your gasoline tax, your registration fee, driver's...
So we have a range of alternatives, and where we are in the process is simply asking people what they think. We want to make sure that people have an opportunity to tell us what they really feel are the transportation priorities, where should the money go, which programs make the most sense.
Comments, and I'd be more than happy to support a wheelage tax that we've talked about too, because that was the #2 priority, and I'd like to see that too. On the trust funds, quite frankly, I just don't believe that we're going to live up to our expectations. I would love to do it, but I just don't see it happening.
There are people who go every weekend, and they show their dogs, they compete. It's a hobby in some places. It's also a big sport. There are professional handlers that make their living doing that for people that can't get away from work.
But it's actually an airplane that can revolutionize an entire industry. We're able to actually produce an airplane that is more comfortable than what's been available in the past, and with more comfort comes more performance. And on top of that, we're introducing an airplane that has a greater degree of safety than anything else flying in its class.
Pouring. Wasn't it downpouring? The thing about the time. Got all the other media here.
Yeah. Well, low-income housing. Now, what's unusual about this is that this program, this project, is specifically designed for home ownership and will serve very low-income people.
As a part-time board member, I don't think that it's probably been quite as hard on any of us as it has been on him. And I certainly understand why after 2 years of working like a slave, he's ready to move on.
Donna Tracy spends a lot of money on prescription drugs.
They're a must for her health and her quality of life. She also spent a lot of time choosing where she gets her drugs. A small neighborhood pharmacy is her choice because of the personal attention she gets from her pharmacist.
He's a kind, gentle man. He's helpful. He's there for you all the time. To me, it means everything.
But many, including Donna's pharmacist, are questioning whether neighborhood pharmacies like his have a future. Many just can't compete in the price war. It becomes obvious with a random prescription drug price comparison. We investigated the cost of the generic drug piroxicam. It is one of the most commonly prescribed medicines for arthritis. The price variation from drugstore to drugstore for the exact same medication was incredible, with the large chain store pharmacies coming in much lower. Not all drug prices vary to such an extent, but we found on the average the large chain pharmacies offered significantly lower prices.
Everybody has different sources for their supply. And even when you're talking about a generic drug, there can be, for instance, piroxicam or many others, there can be 10 different manufacturers, and Lord knows how many different distributors. And
But the biggest problem is that the larger the drug buy, the better the price. Drug manufacturers give the big price breaks to large insurance companies who buy in bulk for millions of customers. Those who lose are those who don't have any insurance for their prescription drugs. Their choice is to shop around and find the lowest price and then make their purchases randomly at the store with the best deal. That means they may buy one drug at one place and another somewhere else. That can be tough for seniors who may find it difficult to get around.
There's something about some of us older people that are used to small places and familiarity and having somebody ready, readily accessible.
There's also the concern about mixing and matching drugs.
And it's really important that people stay with one particular source of their pharmaceutical care. If they buy one drug here because the price is good, and another drug over here because the price is good, and another drug over here, it's very hard to keep track of drug interactions.
Though pharmacists are required to run computer checks on drug interaction, patients may forget what drugs they're taking or get the names wrong. Senior citizens who take the most drugs are the ones that get hit the hardest. And until there are price controls of some sort, they'll continue to pay top dollar, or as is happening in many cases, just not take the drugs they need. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6. In Duluth, Barbara Riles for NBC News.
This is a big problem. It came down to food or medication for some people.
An organization called BOND, or Broad-Based Organizing in Newer Duluth, began looking into the prescription drug safety net system over 2 years ago. It's a group of 59 drug manufacturers who work together to supply medicine free or at reduced prices to the indigent. BOND set up 80 low-income people from this area to apply. But after trying diligently for over 2 years, BOND spokespeople say not even one got any assistance.
They intentionally don't work. I mean, we really have run into a brick wall. We've found that the Pharmaceutical Association is willing to talk to us, but they're willing to talk forever and not act.
The Senior Federation of Northeastern Minnesota has a plan to make drugs affordable and available to everyone. During last year's Minnesota legislative session, they proposed that the state act as a purchasing agent and buy drugs to supply all pharmacies in Minnesota. But the proposal got little support. Lawmakers say large quantity drug buyers like chain store pharmacies and big insurance companies already get cheaper drugs than anything the state could negotiate.
These large groups purchase their drugs through multi-state purchasing cooperatives. So someone like Blue Cross Blue Shield, they're buying their drugs through a cooperative that has 17 million members, whereas the population of Minnesota is only 4.5 million, so they can get a bigger discount.
But that leaves people without insurance out in the cold. Hundley proposes that those without access to discount drugs get into a voluntary statewide purchasing pool for which the state would buy drugs. He also recommends that independent pharmacists form a coalition and buy their drugs together so that they too could access bulk buying discounts to pass on to their customers. The Senior Federation still supports its original plan to make the state the drug purchasing agent for all Minnesotans and intends to continue to battle to get that plan approved. In the meantime, affording necessary prescription drugs remains a major problem. In Duluth, Barbara Riles for NBC News.
I got a $3 bill here. You want it? Sure.
If there was anything matter with the truck, he wouldn't have left with it in the morning. As far as, you know, he's like he has his own truck. He had his own truck for quite a few years, and he is always self-conscious of safety. Was anything wrong with it?
You can't see much from the outside, but it's been a beehive of activity on the inside since a new 6 investigative report revealed a host of dangerous violations. The Mesabi program oversees the work release of people convicted of varying levels of crime from misdemeanor to murder. Our investigative reports revealed prisoner escapes, sexual harassment of inmates, and drug smuggling, among other violations. The Department of Corrections ordered Mesabi's management to hire a consultant to come up with an acceptable plan of action, and ordered the hiring of an architect to redesign the building to make it safer for inmates and the public. The deadline to submit the plan of change was July 15th, though the Department of Corrections agreed to an extension of about 10 days.
The license that was issued as a part of this process is a conditional license that will terminate August 5th, pending a review of what occurs between now and that date.
Mesabi management has consistently refused to talk on camera with Channel 6, and the consultant they hired was also ordered not to talk with us. Department of Corrections spokesmen tell us Mesabi has submitted a plan for significant change that will make the facility operate more safely for the inmates and provide a higher degree of safety for the public.
The public certainly has a right to expect that there is a certain level of supervision and control of people's behavior within a facility, whether it be minimum or maximum security. And those are the issues that we are addressing.
There are several issues raised in our reports that are still under criminal investigation. The St. Louis County Sheriff's Department continues to work with the Duluth Police Department and the State Department of Corrections.
The Minnesota Department of Corrections issued a provisional license to Mesabi work release last month, and they also gave them a list of changes that had to be made in the program to continue to be licensed. They've hired as a consultant the retired Deputy Director of Arrowhead Regional Corrections, Mr. L. Arnold, to help them come into compliance. We're continuing to investigate allegations of illegal activity, looking at financial records and interviewing people.
The criminal investigation includes looking into charges by former employees of sexual harassment and rape and allegations of contract manipulation and overbilling of the state and federal governments. The Minnesota Department of Human Services is also actively investigating the Mesabi work release and port rehabilitation programs. Their report is due to be released the 3rd week in August. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Tonight, below about 57. Partly cloudy and 20 for the showers and thunderstorms tomorrow.
We have a whole lot of entertainment too. Things for the kids, things for older people, music, fun, a lot of things for children to enjoy. So it's just a real family event.
what is happening is someone is calling customers identifying themselves as being from the bank, and they're actually someone that doesn't work for the bank. They might say they're an auditor, or they might say that they work in the computer area, and they'll ask the customer, what's your balance? Tell me when you made your...
They have, at this point, approved the project in total, both in terms of concerns over stormwater, sediment control, fisheries, and in particular the crossing of the stream.
Well, I think there'll be future development, but I think it's just another notch of developers from out of town using as a hard way to do business in Duluth. And I think it just sends a sour note out there.
That was probably the hardest thing in solving this case. The pattern was not there as such certain days, certain hours, and certain times. The areas were different.